Hello, welcome to Breakfast All Day. I'm Matt. Alonzo is here, and Christy is here. This week, a new movie drops, which I'm saying because I know it's going to bother Alonzo, called, what's it called? Which one are we doing?
Becoming. This is the Michelle Obama documentary.
Oh, yeah. Who's that? Anyway, yes, the Michelle Obama documentary that is kind of about her book tour and her book. Who's describing it?
I am. So yeah, Michelle Obama wrote a book called Becoming, and she did a massive book tour with it, did these sort of like on-stage Q&A sessions with your Oprahs and your Stephen Colberts and your Gayle Kings, and in front of packed auditoriums.
Like you do.
Like you do. And so this movie kind of takes us behind the scenes of the tour, and in the process of talking about, what's of interest to her, what life's been like since the White House, we get a glimpse of the things that are important to her. So like she is talking to young women about their futures and their potential. She kind of touches upon the pressures that she was put under by being under the microscope, starting with the campaign back in 2008, and then just going through her tenure in the White House. And there could have been more of that stuff, I think. But ultimately, the movie kind of presents this woman that obviously means a lot to a lot of people and has accomplished quite a bit and still has things to say. But this is also a woman who lost her privacy in becoming a public person, and I think really kind of very steadfastly guards whatever she has left. So the movie isn't really going to get into the things, isn't going to take you behind too many walls, because the walls that are left she wants to maintain, and I don't blame her. But I think that does leave us with maybe a somewhat more surfacey documentary than we might have had with somebody who was more forthcoming.
Right. She's so smart and she's so media savvy at this point after, 2+ decades in the public eye. And she has gotten burned in the past for speaking freely, which she talks about here, and how hurtful that was and how instructive that was. And she acknowledges the guardedness that still persists today, as we see. Nadia Hallgren directed this. This is her feature directing debut. She's been a cinematographer for a little while, and she has worked with the Obamas for a little while. And so she has an intimacy with this person. We see Michelle Obama at quiet moments, like when she's in her hotel suite, getting a quick breath and a quick moment of silence before, going out to go be Michelle Obama. And so we are afforded that kind of intimacy. But you're right, like Michelle Obama is too smart at this point to not be on message. And so we see that when she will tell the same story over and over and over again in front of different audiences, in front of different, wearing different outfits.
As anyone does on a book tour.
Right, sure. And she has expert timing. She's a really gifted storyteller. She's enormously charismatic, whether it is
what
with
laugh lines are.
Yeah, but whether it's one-on-one at a book signing or in these small groups of young women or elderly churchgoers, or in front of a packed, sold-out arena, she really connects and she really engages, and she's got a knack for that, and that seems authentic and that seems genuine. But with the exception of a couple of times talking about like what it was like to be in the White House during the Black Lives Matter movement, during the birth of that, or the racism that she and her family endured, or in one really telling moment when she's in the back of a car and she's saying, she doesn't really mention Trump by name very much, but the one time she mentions him, she says, "I don't blame people for voting for him. I blame people who just couldn't be bothered to vote at all." And that's like a rare moment of candor. And she's so sharp and she's so persuasive. Like, I wish she would have let her guard down a little more to let us know what she thinks about things. And maybe she will in time. Maybe in a little more time she will.
You get a little bit of humanity. Not that she's ever not human, but there's a little bit more of a relaxed sense when she's around her mother and her brother. Like the way they kind of jokingly needle each other, and they're very affectionate, but they're also very like, the way that family members do, they know how to like push each other's buttons and stuff. Like that's a moment where you kind of feel like, oh, real person. But yeah, I think so much of this movie kind of feels like when they take a press release, but they write it as though it were a personal letter to you.
Yeah.
But it's still a press release. That's kind of what this movie is.
Yeah, this movie, it feels stretched. it feels, it's an hour, hour 20, hour 30.
It's 89 minutes.
89. I mean, it kind of feels like they could have done it in an hour.
Sure.
It feels stretched in places. Look, there's no denying that the stuff on stage when she's interviewing people, getting interviewed is really, really good stuff, right? They're clearly picking really good moments. She is very charismatic. But there's some of that behind the scenes stuff about that process that I would have liked them to dig into more. There's a point at which, she's talking to her group about how, you got to be careful with Colbert because he'll go to unexpected places in an interview. He's a really good interview, but you got to be ready because he'll cut to something that you're not quite ready for, or he's got such deep insight, right? That was interesting because when, and we know this because we've been interviewed, there is a difference depending. And so I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that, or there's a talk about how, it's either she or one of her people is talking about, remaining focused at the signing so that she's not looking at other people and really spending that moment with that person. And I found that stuff was as interesting as the stuff with her family. I mean, the stuff with her family is great too. But I thought that was really kind of fascinating. And I wanted to get a little bit more of that. The pieces where it feels like she's reading out of the book is not as interesting, right?
Well,
I mean, it's a little like...
Those one-on-one moments it's fascinating to watch because in that moment, she makes that other person feel like that she's completely sort of locked in and engaged. And that's a gift. When you read about like Bill Clinton, apparently that was his mojo. Like the whole I feel your pain thing, he could really like talk to any group of people and make them feel like they were being seen, they were being understood, that he empathized in a laser sort of way, and then on to the next person and the same thing. And she has that same sort of mutant power.
But it seems authentic. It doesn't seem false or stagey. Like she's so warm. Like one of the lines in this that she says in her interview with the director, and this is actually the lead of my review on RogerEbert.com, was she says, "I am from the South Side of Chicago, and that tells you everything you need to know about me." Right. And so the earnestness and the down-to-earth warmth, they feel authentic. And so I believe that she does want to make these people feel like they're the only person in the room.
And I'm not saying that it's like that it's all glib showbiz, but I'm just saying it's a thing that some people can do that some people can't.
Yeah.
And whatever level of authenticity goes with it, maybe sure varies from person to person. No, I believe that she absolutely did relate to those people and did want to hear what they had to say. But it's just it's a specific skill that certain politicians have, and should she decide to become a politician herself, I think it would serve her well.
I do not think she would ever do that. I think she knows too much.
Probably, yeah. She's seen a lot of sausage get made at this point. So
because that story that she tells in her interview, Oprah Winfrey asks her, what was that like to leave the White House? And the story she tells about getting on the plane, getting on Air Force One for the last time and just sobbing for a half an hour straight because it's just the release of not having to be perfect at all times. Like, I think she experiences that a version of that freedom every day, and she probably relishes it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and there's a moment where she talks about how she doesn't like politics, right? And like, and how, she had to accept that like that's what Barack's doing, and I'm going to go out and support, but I don't really like it myself. Yeah, I mean, I do. Speaking of the sausage get made, I love when she's asking the Secret Service guys, like, I want to see your whole process, right? Like, I want to see what it takes to set things up because she's interested. She's curious, and that's
I never get to be in that meeting,
right? Which I think would be great, And then she's a terrific storyteller, right? Like the story of, I mean, that's one of the great things. That's one of the fun things about this movie is that she does tell a really good story. So when she's talking about, going out, trying to get out of the White House, and like pulling on the locked door, and nobody's going to ask what ma'am is doing, and that was
and the whole story about like the last night in the White House, and they're packed up and they got to leave the next day, and all this stuff's happening, and the daughters are like, we want to have a sleepover. Our friends want to say goodbye to the White House. She's like, but she does it anyway.
Some fun anecdotes. But then again, like, they interview the head of her Secret Service detail, and they interview her chief of staff who's been with her for a long time. And
that
they
picture on the slide
stylist.
is great.
What's that? Which one's that?
The picture on the slide with the Secret Service guy.
On the Great Wall,
funny.
and the guy behind
Oh,
him.
yeah.
The Secret Service guy, like,
And they have to go on the water slide. And they interview her stylist. And for the most part, they all offer, you know, very polite and affectionate anecdotes. But the stylist has some interesting insight. And I think what you represent as a first lady, Michelle Obama was very aware of, and she wanted to use the power of that spotlight to shine it on, you know, designers of color, you know, little known designers from all around the world, and not just always wear, you know, Oscar de la Renta like Nancy Reagan did, you know, exactly. and reflexively, Melania is also aware of that and will wear a jacket that says, "I really don't care, do you?" You know, so it's interesting to see, like, she could use this.
And then claim, what? I didn't even know. I just got it off the road.
But she was smart in the way that she used this very traditional feminine element of the first lady role.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, that's a thing that you see with, like, you know, I always point to the example of, like, you know, Audrey Hepburn and then later Julia Roberts from their work for UNICEF. It was kind of like, all right, you're going to follow me. You're going to take pictures of me wherever I go. Then come with me to Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. You know, take pictures of that and let's see what happens.
Angelina Jolie. Anyway, exactly. so it's not the unplugged Michelle Obama that the trailer suggests, but it's very good, and she's enormously enjoyable company for an hour and a half. So I'm saying 7.8.
I said what, 6.5?
You said 6.6. You said
6.6. Yeah, like I feel like I got to know Taylor Swift better after her documentary than I know Michelle Obama after this one. But, you know, yeah, you're right. She's an interesting person. And even if we're getting like 98% of this movie is the public her is still pretty interesting.
I give it a 6.5. Like I said, it feels a bit stretched, but it's still worth watching.
We should mention too that this is part of Michelle and Barack Obama's production deal with Netflix.
Yes.
That's a key piece of information there.
which also gave us the much, much better Crip Camp that if you haven't seen it, you should go watch.
Yes. So our number's a 7. This came out on Netflix this past week, so it's been around for a few days. So if you guys have seen it, let us know what you think.
Yeah, please do. And while you're at it, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Visit us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And drop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We are wrapping up our season 3 recaps of HBO's Westworld. We're talking about Hulu's Mrs. America. And there's always lots of other fun stuff that's exclusive to our subscribers. So do go check that out. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.